The most intense political crisis of our time began just 10 years ago with the break-in at the Watergate in Washington. The heart of it was the story of a man who was president, a man who had many fears, and how those fears set in motion a crisis for the nation and a tragedy for himself. One more triumph for President Nixon's foreign policy. The first state visit to the White House by such a high-ranking Soviet leader. It was Brezhnev, June 1973, 1 year after the break-in that began the Watergate affair. Worldwide, there was great hope for this meeting, but inside the White House, there was fear that something could happen to weaken the president and jeopardize the success of the Brezhnev summit. Ironically, the White House fear stemmed from another branch of the United States government itself, from Capitol Hill, from the Senate committee headed by Sam Ervin of North Carolina. The senator doesn't look dangerous, but the White House was worried about him and possible damage to the president from his Watergate hearing. So they asked Ervin to hold off until Brezhnev had left Washington. Scheduled to testify the same day that the summit began was John Dean, the witness the White House wanted to keep quiet until Brezhnev got out of town.
I love my country. I venerate the office of president. And I have the best wishes for the success of the president incumbent of that office, because he's the only president this country has at this time.
But all the world is watching as we meet on this occasion, because the people of the world know that if the leaders of the two most powerful nations of the world can work together, and their governments can work together, the chance for a world of peace is infinitely increased.
Уважаемый господин президент.
As the ceremonies began, the world watched and hoped for success. In that spirit, the Senate committee agreed to postpone its hearings. But many people did wonder what kind of testimony could endanger the role of President Nixon or relations between the two great powers. A week later, they found out as the Watergate committee hearings were brought to order by Senator Ervin.
The committee will come to order, and counsel will call the first witness. Stand up and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the evidence that you shall give to the Senate Select Committee on Presidential Campaign Activities shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, so help me God. Some of these people I'll be referring to are friends. Some are men I greatly admire and respect. And particularly with reference to the President of the United States, I'd like to say this. It is my honest belief that while the President was involved that he did not realize or appreciate at any time the implications of his involvement. And I think that when the facts come out, I hope the president is forgiven.
Talk of fear and forgiveness for a president. Shockwaves from Watergate, just 1 week after his triumphal state meeting with Brezhnev in the White House. I'm Nancy Dickerson. This is the 784 days that changed America, a story of Watergate from a perspective 10 years later. It took 784 days to trace the trail from the Watergate break-in to the Oval Office of the President, a trail that led through labyrinths of testimony, intrigue, and the curious twists of one man's mind. Richard Nixon harbored fears and suspicions that no amount of success seemed to change, that even now his associates look back on with wonder. John Ehrlichman, former White House aide.
He's the man of 1,000 facets, and that's why he's so hard to describe. When you walked into his office, you saw a persona, which was the product of his desire to please you, to get along with you.
Gerald Ford, who succeeded Richard Nixon as president.
I think he has a brilliant mind, but he had certain characteristics that, under the circumstances of Watergate, unfortunately rose to the surface.
John Sirica, judge at the Watergate trials.
He would have gone out as a great president, because I think he was on solid ground on his foreign policy philosophy. He made a good president, but he didn't have that something about him that would make him react to a situation like this.
Elliot Richardson, Attorney General under Richard Nixon.
And said, Mr. President, I hope now that you look back on the magnitude of your victory in November, that you'll come at last to realize that you are the president of all the people of the United States. There are not a lot of people out there trying to get you. They're rooting for you. They want you to succeed. Your success is their success. But somehow, deep down inside, you just don't seem to believe that.